Welcome to Mystical Dispute, the limited Magic the Gathering debate podcast. I'm Garrett Gardner, aka G-Guards.
I'm Carl Chase, aka 2 Duck Cubed.
You can catch the two of us co-streaming drafts together sometimes on Tuesday or Wednesday nights, or watch our draft replays on YouTube at Mystical Dispute. And of course, thank you so much to our Patreon patrons. And today, we are going to debate Plasma Bolt versus
Gravkill.
Plasma Bolt is red for a sorcery. It deals 2 damage to any target, and void, it deals 3 damage instead if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn.
Gravkill has a mana value of 4 for 3 and a black. It's an instant, exile target creature, or spacecraft.
Carl, this feels like a easy one for me, so thank you for lobbing me a softball as I ease myself back into Mystical Dispute.
No problem, Garrett.
This is what friends are for, right?
I very intentionally picked a situation where you had a full point of win rate on me on 17 lands. So, as we know, that settles the debate and you win, but we'll still talk it out.
Yeah, we'll talk it out. And also, I really want to shout out our co-drafts we've been doing together. It's been helping us figure out what our opinions and positions are on the format a lot, but it's also just a ton of fun. We actually stream them live on my Twitch at twitch.tv/gguards, so, come hang out. We're trying to make them on Tuesdays. This week we had it on Wednesday. It's going to be whenever we can do it, but it's what we do right before we record to get our juices flowing.
No, don't say that. That sounds terrible. I'm leaving.
It's totally not okay to say. It's like not even a little okay to say, is it?
Adios. It's just
to get our engines revving.
Okay, that's better.
Is that a little better? Yeah.
To get our spacecrafts stationed.
Yeah.
That also I don't like that one either. Let's just go to opening takes, Garrett.
All right.
In this corner,
opening takes.
Now, Carl, for the record, I am going to stick with Gravkill here, the obvious contender for one of the top pick commons in the set. It just exiles a creature or spacecraft at instant speed. Kind of hard to beat that. But it's also kind of the boring pick. I feel like there's not a lot to say about Gravkill except it's good. And also, in general, I would actually amend what I just said and say it's not probably one of the top picks in the set because removal has just gotten worse and worse to the point where it's just kind of fine. But in this world of potentially 4 rares in your packs where you've got all these bombs floating around that are like, if you don't kill this, you die, you still need to pick cards like Gravkill. And the nice thing about Gravkill is that it kills everything right when you need it to.
Garrett, I'm going to come out swinging today.
All right.
I want you to take the concept of a 1-for-1 trade and flush it down the toilet.
All right. Putting it right down in there.
1-for-1 trade is basically not a thing that exists in Magic anymore.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? Yes, Gravkill. Sure, you spend 4 mana, they have a thing, their thing's gone, 1-for-1, yes. But take a look at some of the most played creatures using 17 lands, and you will start to see why a card like Gravkill isn't truly a 1-for-1 trade. Look at some of the most played cards in this set. Against cards like Galactic Wayfarer or Selfcraft Mechan, they're going to be up essentially a full card against a Gravkill for about the same amount of mana.
Lander token or draw a card, yeah.
Against cards like a Night Luminary, they're going to get a 1/1 that's sitting behind. And it really isn't until you get to something like a Pinnacle Kill Ship where they're still going to get more value out of it, but they spent 7 mana and you spent 4, so you have a tempo advantage there.
Sure.
The point being is that cards like Gravkill and Modern Magic absolutely still have a place, but you are very likely to get a tempo disadvantage or a value disadvantage if you're just casting it to cast it. So you have to be very intentional about how you play that card, and if you put too many of those in your deck and they keep casting Galactic Wayfarers and Night Luminaries, you're going to end up way behind at the end of the day, both in tempo and in value.
That's all fine and good, Carl, but why do you like Plasma Bolt?
My strategy in this set has been to get the most efficient removal that I can, and then get as much card advantage that I can, and try to use my efficient removal to give me the time that I need to go big. That is pretty much my whole theory on this set. Stay alive so you can draw a bunch of cards, or you can cast big things like Nebula Dragon and Pinnacle Kill Ship, or even better, some of the bigger rares.
Can I steal this point to defend Cryo Shatter in the past, Carl?
You can,
No, it's all said and done. It's said and done. We can move on, Carl, to beep bop boop a dee bop a doo boop bop a doo boop a doo.
Data crunch.
So, Carl, the Gravkill has a 56.1% game in hand win rate, which is honestly not that great. Stacked up against the other commons, it's actually the 5th best performing black common, and among top players, it is also 5th at 60.4%. So even though it is taken very highly, in my experience, it's still not performing fantastic, but I still would defend it. I mean, I'm never sad to see a Gravkill in the pack, and I'm never sad to pick it. You just have to have this type of card in your deck. I'll talk more on that later, but like the data says it's kind of mediocre. I don't think that's true.
You're with data right now, Garrett, not arguing.
I know.
Keep to the script.
Well, all right, I'll keep well, we're not just like robots in this section. We have to like contextualize it.
You
like
literally just went beep boop bop beep boop, and you're saying you're not a robot? Come on, who's gonna believe that?
Well,
yeah,
Carl,
that's right.
what are your stats for your beautiful little red card? Come on, let's hear them.
All right, well, my stats for Plasma Bolt aren't quite as good as the Gravkill's. 55.2% win rate is a full 0.9% below the Gravkill. It's the 6th highest red common, and it jumps a little bit higher for top players up to the 5th best red common there.
The Gravkill is also taken with an ALSA or average Lysina of 3.14, which is pretty high for a common. Compare that to the Plasma Bolt, which is at 4.33. More than a full pack later, you're going to see a lot more Plasma Bolts wheeling around than Gravkills, which is not surprising. You know, I think people, it might be outdated, but bread or whatever, you're going to take removal pretty highly. And while Plasma Bolt is removal, Gravkill says exile whatever the hell you want. So I think it's just going to be more enticing to people. I also think it's a better pick. Oh no, I did it again. I'm just like absolutely destroying the sanctity of data crunch here. I'm so sorry.
You are. So we probably should just get right into it then, huh?
All right, let's do it.
Debate it.
So you started by making the point that 1-for-1s don't really exist in Magic anymore, right? Because creatures always do something cool when they enter the battlefield, or they make another guy, or they make a lander token, or they draw a card, or they do all this stuff. And I completely agree with that. That is true. That is the direction in which design is clearly gone. You know, gone are the days where it's just a battle in the ye old times of Limited, where it's just like vanilla creatures attacking and blocking.
Can I interject on that point too? Because I think it's
Sure.
I think it's worth spending some time thinking about that, even past what you just said. Because on the surface, I think everybody gets the idea that, okay, if there's a comes into play trigger on the creature, yes, it's going to be worse.
Sure.
But go back to a world where every single creature was vanilla and didn't have an ability when it hit the battlefield, which, I mean, for a while was pretty close to what things were, and then it's kind of evolved over time. But let's just keep it super simple. If you have 2 removal spells and like a 5/5, and your opponent has a 3/3, a 4/4, and a 5/5. You can kill their 4/4 and their 5/5, and they're left with a 3/3, and then you have a 5/5. So you get to kill their best creature with the removal, and if they don't have it, then you're going to outclass them in terms of card quality. So that's, you know, that's the basic original theory why removal was so important, was because it's about selection. It's about killing the better thing. It's generally speaking using your mana more efficiently than the creature that was killing it to begin with, and having the selection on those cards. That really starts to evaporate pretty quickly in modern Magic when so many of the cards do something when they hit the battlefield.
And Carl, my point here is that I agree with you, but I also kind of disagree with that point, because modern Magic is also full of cards that say, I win the fucking game right now. And maybe they come in with the creature that makes 2 tokens or something, or maybe I don't know, whenever you attack, you draw a card and gives all your creatures flying, all this crap, right? Like that can be attached to rares or even uncommons sometimes.
That card that we played in our YouTube draft today, by the way, go check out our drafts on YouTube, Elegy Acolyte. You got to kill that thing immediately, otherwise it literally draws you cards and makes robots every turn.
Yeah. And so that's my counterpoint to removal used to be used as this like, okay, kill your, 6/6 dragon or whatever, and then now I'm ahead on board. Now it's used as an answer to unbeatable rares that are only beaten by things like Gravkill. It's like a necessary evil, and it's become even more necessary with how the pack collation works these days. And I just don't think it's going away anytime soon. And so when you compare Gravkill to a sorcery that does 2 or 3 damage to any target, I'm going to pick the Gravkill every time just because I'm going to feel safer against opponents that might have a deck with 2 or 3 bombs in it, that you have to absolutely crush those bombs or you basically have like a 10% win rate against some of these bombs unless you have an answer. For that reason, I don't see unconditional removal ever going away in value.
It's never going to go away. I'm going to make a chess analogy.
Sure.
There's a scoring mechanism to talk about the value of the pieces you have on the board, right? Pawns are worth 1, knights and bishops are 3, rooks are 5, queen's worth 9. But all of that is just shorthand for the likeliness you are to take their king, because that is the only way you win in chess, is by checkmating the king. By the way, if anybody's who's in charge of chess is listening, I think you should get rid of the checkmate and just make it so you actually take the king. That would be so much more exciting for all the viewers. Because like when you have these high-level chess matches and people are, just like conceding and it's like, how is that a checkmate? I don't even understand what's going on. Anyway, that's not the point of this. We're talking about Magic here.
Carl's trying to improve a game that's like 10,000 years old or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Shamelessly, too. Anyway, you can get all of the value you want. You could play Codecracker Hounds and Galactic Wayfarers and Cryogen Relics, and you've all this incredible amounts of value. And then they play their Elegy Acolyte, or they play their, that card I was talking about, the 4-mana lifelink, it draws you cards and gets you robots, or they play their Genomorph Imago and start hitting you in the air for 6.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't matter because you're dead. And so there is a rock, paper, scissors element of modern Magic that you just can't sink all of your resources into one particular strategy, right? If you think about the most efficient beaters and like the highest power per mana value creatures that you can get, that maybe they don't have comes into play abilities, Plasma Bolt is going to be absolutely unbelievable against those kind of cards. If you think about a big chonker, maybe a Harmonious Growth Strider, for example, that's just 5 mana for XX equal number of lands you control, Gravkill is going to be pretty darn good against that. And then you go into the Codecracker Hounds of the world, the Galactic Wayfarers that again get you extra value when they come into the battlefield. And those are going to be pretty good against cards like Gravkill, because you can't sit there and try to Gravkill all those, you will just lose. So it's all got to be a balance, and none of those cards alone, by the way, are going to beat the bombs. And that's a reality of Limited as well, especially in the play booster era. Even at common, even at uncommon, there's cards like Pinnacle Killship at common. There's cards like Glacier Goldmaw at uncommon that are going to eventually just kill you. You can't just sit around and do nothing, so you have to have a plan. And you got to use all the different combinations of those kinds of cards, cheap removal, unconditional removal, value creatures, efficient creatures, to try to figure out what your particular plan is.
And Carl, I agree across the board on that. I think we kind of agree in general that Gravkill is basically just a necessary evil. If you're trying to go long, which Black is usually trying to do in this format, you're trying to have a dirtly game, you want the ability to remove their bombs, they're going to get their bombs, they're going to play their bombs. You're just going to try to outclass them with your own synergy-based common interactions and stuff like that. And then their Gravkill is there just to remove their freaking, enormous whatever guy that makes a billion robots. There's a couple reasons that Gravkill is particularly good to me, which are, fairly obvious, but I'll say them anyway. First of all, Exile is excellent. There's a lot of recursion in this set. This doesn't care about that. It exiles something. Second of all, it can kill spaceships before they even have an opportunity to station them, which can be very helpful when like that Pinnacle Kill ship is about to become a 7/7. You can just kill it beforehand. 4 mana is bad, but for the most part, a lot of the spaceships are expensive, so you are up on mana, and a lot of the time you're trying to kill a station spaceship.
And in that particular scenario, Garrett, that is huge tempo positive, right? They spent 7 mana, they tapped 3 creatures that cost, 3 mana, 4 mana, and 5 mana, and then you just eliminate that, and especially if it's at the right time, you alpha back, and now they're on the back foot, and now they're not going to be able to use their cards more efficiently the rest of the game.
And probably the best case, right, for Gravkill is not targeting an unstationed spaceship, but it's one that they stationed in order to block. And now they have a tap board and you kill their 7/7 flying Bagillion guy and you just kill them. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the best uses of Gravkill. All that, though, feels like a little bit obvious, I guess. What I'm curious about, Carl, is why you're taking this red spell over Gravkill in the debate. And I'm going to yield my time a little bit because I think you're going to have to make the case. You've got the card with the worst game in hand win rate. You've got the card with the lower Alice's score. And you've got a card that does 2 or sometimes 3 damage and it's sorcery speed. So I'm really curious what you've got to say about how you play this card, because I tried it. I had a deck with 4 of these and it did not work. So I think I probably was building it in a different way than you. So I'm going to yield a lot of my debate time to you, Carl. This is my gift to you.
The senator from Brooklyn yields the floor. I'll go back to my strategy in this set. I want to create time for myself to get as much value as I can.
All right.
There's a simple version of that. We are playing cards like Cryogen Relic, Self-Craft Mechan, and even the uncommon that surveils and draws 3 cards for 5 mana, Cerebral Download. Which, by the way, right now I'm giving you a Cerebral Download about my strategy in this set.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
That is a way to make up for the fact that all these creatures have come into play abilities, is if you can kill them all and then draw a bunch more cards, you can generally outcard the opponent and the incremental value they're getting from their creatures. And most importantly, you're not taking a bunch of damage, because if you need to stop to spend 5 mana to draw 3 cards, like with a Cerebral Download, or even to a lesser extent with Cryogen Relic, you just don't want to take a billion damage. And it can be really easy to take a billion damage, and there's a lot of direct damage in this set to finish you off. So it is perilous to, 6 life is a really uncomfortable life total. Mm-hmm. Dubious Delicacy, the card we're talking about here, Plasma Bolt, Nebula Dragon, various cards that attack the turn they come into play with haste. So card draw is scary for that reason, but also necessary with all the value that is possible. But another reason why I find it extremely important to have cheap removal in this set is because I want to create landers and I want to crack them as soon as I possibly can. And when you crack a lander, that's 2 less mana on the turn that you crack it, but then 1 more mana for every turn the rest of the game. Yep. So you are making an investment in time to have more resources in the future, and whenever you do that, an efficient Tempo-based removal spell is fantastic. So let's say you're playing a red-black deck. On turn 2, you have played a Beamsaw Prospector.
That's the 2/1 that dies into a lander?
Yeah. You play a 2/1, maybe you block with it, you get a lander. Now it's turn 3. They've played another creature that's an X3. A card like Bombard or Cut Propulsion, for example, might be able to kill their creature, but then you're spending all of your mana on that turn to do so. Or let's say it's even on turn 4. Let's go into the future. You play Galactic Wayfarer on turn 3, and you're trying to debate whether you use your Gravkill or not on turn 4. Plasma Bolt is always going to work really well with landers, right? Cracking the lander gives a spell void, so it powers it up, but that's not really the reason that the landers are good with it. It's because you could cast it in the same turn as you're using their lander. So they spent 3 mana. Maybe they even got a little bit of additional value out of it, but you crack your lander for 2 mana and you spend 1 mana. So you spent the same amount as them. The board is equal, but you have now gained more resources for the rest of the game.
Right.
Which then allows you to potentially do that again. And maybe now you've got 5 mana and you play another Wayfarer or whatever it is, and cracking another lander and play another Plasma Bolt and kill another thing, and now you're kind of even there. And then you just wake up on turn 5 or 6 with 7 mana and a decent amount of cards in your hand because you've been spending mana on board cracking things like landers, and that is your recovery turn. The more that you can keep the board clean to crack the landers, get ahead, have that 7 mana open so you can do a whole bunch of stuff and kind of change the tide of the game in your favor is really where you want to be at.
And so I'm going to reclaim my time, to say a little point here. The deck that I mentioned earlier that had 4 of these Plasma Bolts in it was my second deck of the format or something like that. And I had no idea what was going on yet. I didn't know how Void really played out. And I made an aggressive deck with it. So it didn't have a lot of top end. It had a lot of small curve out creatures and Plasma Bolts, which were most of the time just shocks because it's really hard to trigger Void in an aggressive deck. when you're trying to kill a 3 toughness creature, which would have been really nice if it just did 3 damage, but it doesn't. It does 2 damage unless something left the battlefield this turn, and it just played out horribly for me. I think it went 0-3 in that draft or something like that. So this all makes sense to me. This is not what you're saying, Carl, is that Plasma Bolt's not an aggressive card. It's, mid-range or long-term card that is very efficient on mana and tempo, and inefficient otherwise, but still worth it because you're getting long-term value.
Absolutely. It is rare that I am putting it in my deck as a lava spike.
Yep.
I'm sure that I will have decks where it's kind of doing that, but typically in the aggressive decks, you're not necessarily going to be triggering Void as reliably because you're going to have just, more efficient creatures. And
yep.
Yeah, you might be playing removal, but then you got to have 2 removal spells pre-combat to trigger Void. And you're just cracking less landers. That's the other thing about the more aggressive decks is you're probably not cracking as many landers.
Exactly.
Because the whole point of cracking a lander is to invest for the future. And when you're the aggro deck,
you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that because the longer the game goes, the more the big mana deck's probably going to take advantage.
It's almost funny because I love that you're explaining this because it going to face was me thinking like, well, this is a lava spike. I want to cast like 2 of them to kill them at 6 life, but that's just not, I guess, what you're using it for.
Well, it is important too, but not in, I think, the classical way that you'd think about it. There are a lot of turns where, especially in kind of the big mana card draw value deck battles, where neither side totally knows who's ahead at any point because all the cards in your hand do such big things, and the potential for huge swinging turns is there because maybe people have random spaceships that are unstationed sitting there. Like, again, go back to Pinnacle Kill Ship, but it comes up all the time. Not knowing whether that card is going to be able to attack for 7 mana is a very relevant part of every game. And so one of the things that I do best in Magic is plan out when to kill an opponent. I'm really good at trying to manage the timing of endgames. And Plasma Bolt goes such a long way into just being able to craft this situation where they think they're safe, but they're really not. So that value matters a lot. And just like we talked about this last week with Gaia's Might, we talked about it last week with Biosynthetic Burst, you do need to know whether you're using this to trade for a creature or to go to face. I think more often than not, you're going to be killing a creature.
Killing a creature, yeah. It's funny, so essentially you're saying Plasma Bolt requires you to have a plan.
That's exactly it.
That's common, right? Like we hear that phrase a lot these days, which is accurate. I had a plan for it and it was the wrong plan, but this might be a better plan. So okay, yeah, you've lifted me up a little bit on Plasma Bolt, but I think my defense of Gravkill is people say have a plan. I don't think it has to be like draw this card, then play this card that synergizes with it. Sometimes the plan is take your Gravkill and kill their fucking bomb.
Yeah, you need plans in Modern Limited regardless, right? Yes, there are bombs that plan for themselves because they just beat the hell out of your opponent.
Yeah, their plan is cast this. Yeah,
and it's kind of the point of our podcast, right? I think cards like Gravkill and Plasma Bolt are pretty unassuming, but you do want plans for both in some ways, right? Your plan with Gravkill is how to not lose against Codecracker Hounds and Galactic Wayfarers. And your plan with Plasma Bolt is, do I need to go face or do I need to go creatures, and how do I reliably trigger Void?
I mean, makes sense to me, Carl. Maybe let's wrap this guy up in
closing arguments.
All right, Carl, here's my closing argument. Black spell, make creature go bye-bye. That's about it. There's a lot of bombs you need to get rid of. Get rid of them.
That was very articulate, Garrett.
Yeah, eloquently said, I'm sure.
Gravkill is certainly a card that I'd love to have in almost every one of my black decks. But the problem for me is that people really, really like this card and they draft it highly, and I don't value it as highly. And as a result, I'm just not getting very many unless black is really open. And because my base plan tends to be trying to figure out how I can get as much value and just kind of go as big as I can in the mid and the late game, Gravkill doesn't fit super well into that plan. Because again, you can't Gravkill and crack a lander in the same turn in the early part of the game. If you're spending the mana to draw cards or to crack landers, you don't have as big of a board. And so Gravkill truly just becomes that spend 4 mana to trade for their 3 mana thing and they get a lander out of it, right? It's not really good on the back foot. It needs to be paired with other cards to truly get the value out of it.
Right.
And Plasma Bolt certainly is not without all of its faults, right? When you have no way to trigger Void and they're sitting there with maybe their 4/3 menace across the board and you're sitting there looking at this stupid Plasma Bolt, feels really bad. And I think honestly that's why people are somewhat turned off by this card.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you are kind of behind because you spent all your time cracking landers and now is the turn where you are opening up and you need to do a whole bunch of stuff and you have exactly 1 mana left in that particular turn, or maybe you played a Cryogen Relic, you cracked a Cryogen Relic, you played some like other random body and you have 1 mana left over and you've got Void and it can kill their 4/3 menace for that 1 mana, that completely changes the game and often wins the game on the spot because of the fact that you can kill something that costs a lot more for just 1 at the point in the game where you already have a big advantage. Let me actually give you a real closing argument here, Garrett. I learned a lot when I played a couple of constructed events here in the last 2 or 3 years. I played the one Pro Tour Arena Championship thing. I played one of the regional championships in San Diego. And we're talking about how every creature has some sort of comes into play ability here. Well, standard is like everything creates value. Literally everything just is like every card's like a 3-for-1. And what my brain wanted to go to is like, well, everything's a 3-for-1. Why do I want to play any 1-for-1s? That's just a losing game. But you still have to, because you still can't die. It's still the king in chess. So it's all about a balance. There's no such thing as 1-for-1s. It's a tempo versus value continuum. And everything is this tempo versus value continuum. The most common example is if you get in the late game, you got a chump block with all your cards to stay alive, well, you're getting 0 value out of your cards. And vice versa, if you can attack and they've got a double block and you can play a removal spell, you're getting even more value out of your cards at that particular juncture. So it's all about this, how much value can I get out of my cards and where does the tempo position that I'm in allow me to do so? Plasma Bolt is fantastic for that, even if it's not as inherently powerful of a card as Gravkill.
I think those are all really excellent points, Carl, for Cryo Shatter. Thank you for rewinding time and making my points a couple of weeks for me back. I get it. I understand your use of Plasma Bolt now, but I really do think that they all apply to Cryo Shatter, honestly.
If Cryo Shatter said, or deal 3 damage to face.
Yeah, okay. And if it didn't leave a blocker, yeah, fair enough. I still stand my boy Cryo Shatter, though. I will end on that.
I actually like these cards about the same. So
okay,
that's fair.
Nice to know, Carl. And that about wraps it up. So thanks for listening to Mystical Dispute. You can support the show on Patreon. I'm Garrett Gardner. You can find me at twitch.tv/gguards.
And I'm Carl Chase. I hang out with Garrett.
Shout out to 17 Lands for the data. You can support them on Patreon as well. Until next time, stay Gravkill.
Bye.
It rhymes. That works, right?
I feel like that had no ingenuity or thought behind it. I mean, adios.
But it rhymes. It rhymes, Carl.
Until next time, stay Gravkill. What rhymes there?
Chill. I usually say chill. Come on, man.
Stay chill, stay Gravkill. Okay. All right. I don't know. Whatever. Bye.
This is the worst goodbye.
This is a horrid goodbye. We're really going out with a bang here. Good job, guys.
You can turn off the podcast now. Goodbye.
Bye. We're dumbasses. I love it.
We truly are.
Okay.